Somehow, though, inexplicably, Corbin Carroll is 5th in all-star votes for National League outfielders per MLB's first ballot update. Let's take a look at that. But as you see here, there's another player from the Arizona Diamondbacks up there in 3rd place.
I love how that's how we're framing this, being like, gosh darn it, Corbin Carroll's being robbed. Meanwhile, we have potentially an all-star starter.
Lourdes Gurriel Jr. is 3rd and appears to be far more likely to start the game right now than Corbin Carroll, just based on that difference in voting. And we have to thank the wonderful Toronto Blue Jays fans for their participation in the All-Star voting. We love you. We appreciate your love of baseball. And more importantly, we appreciate your love of your players long after they've left your organization. It's unlike any team we've ever
Where's
seen.
Gabby in the voting,
though? Gabby is...
He's 7th, I believe, in the
he should be much
catchers.
Yeah, but they didn't have as much time to fall in love with him as they did.
We need to work together on that, Blue Jays fans. But for the most part, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. has a fairly commanding lead here. I mean, that's kind of impressive over Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis Jr. I mean, there's just a lot of Padres fans out there now. Those guys are really popular. And I mean, again, Lourdes Gurriel Jr. actually getting the credit he deserves, what him and I have done this season together as a team.
Yeah, I think the funniest thing about like D-back, like how the D-backs get treated in the national media is like, I feel like ultimately if you're good, you're going to get your respect. But then I know you were looking at like the Christian Walker thing like earlier, like once you're in the margins, like then you're going to start getting completely disrespected. They're not going to pay you any attention.
Yeah, Christian Walker is absolutely being disrespected right now.
He is not even in the top 10.
Yeah,
which is pretty
absurd.
Jake Cronenworth has more votes at first base
the
than
Crone
Christian
Zone,
Walker.
baby. But like at the end of the day, and granted, like Canada probably doesn't play a role with it, but like it's hard to argue that Lourdes doesn't at least deserve to be in that top 5, if not a starter, especially over guys like Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis. He's having a really good damn season.
You know who deserves to be in there that isn't getting the love they deserve? Jerry P.
Payment
Your
Smith.
Risk King, Geraldo Perdomo. Jesse, how is this possible?
Yeah, I mean, Geraldo Perdomo has a 396 on base percentage, which is insane. Like a shortstop who plays good defense, who gets on base almost 40% of the time.
It's Moneyball written all over it.
First among NL shortstops in OPS at 869. First.
He technically is not a so-called qualified hitter at this point. He still is a little bit short. As long as the Diamondbacks continue to use him in this platoon role with Nick Ahmed, it's going to be hard for him to catch up on those plate appearances. So that might be part of it. People are looking at the number of at-bats that he has and noticing it is lower than some of the other shortstops. But he should absolutely be higher than 8th.
And isn't he behind a shortstop that only has like 100 at-bats? Or no, is that
Yeah. Well, Matt McClain has more votes than Geraldo Perdomo, and Matt McClain has about 120 plate appearances, I think, at this point. And they have been incredible. But 120 plate appearances is like 30 games. When you're talking about
former
like
Arizona
half.
Diamondback, Matt McClain.
Yeah, former Diamondbacks legend, former Diamondbacks draft pick, never actually signed with the team. Matt McClain has had a good start to his career. But yeah, Geraldo Perdomo is absolutely being disrespected in the voting at this point. I don't necessarily think that like, Perdomo has to start. I think there is some legitimacy to the case against him, and that he doesn't have as many at-bats. He doesn't lead in WAR. He's 3rd in WAR among shortstops in the NL. But he has a really strong case to be a reserve, and at least with how the fans are seeing it right now, he would not at all be in that situation.
Christian Walker once again leads all first basemen in outs above average. Right? And
I haven't checked, but yes. I mean, I don't even really have to.
Defensive runs saved, outs above average. Like, again, hopefully he gets that nod when we get past the vote select or the fan selection. Obviously, not a lot of fans outside of Arizona know him, but they should, and they should know our song we sing about him, the Walker, Walker, Walker song.
He is first.
We'll get a video out there. Is he a first?
He has 6.
Yeah.
Nathaniel Lowe has 5.
Yeah,
people with 3.
Christian Walker just continues to be incredible. Ketel Marte is 8th in All-Star voting right now at second base, 5th among all NL second basemen with an 812 OPS. So maybe right around where he should be. Like that's not that surprising.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like he's being snubbed.
It's not that egregious. I think he's 9th in WAR actually among NL second basemen. A lot of that is just he's kind of a negative defensively, which is certainly working against him there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you feel like in general when it comes to the All-Star game, people favor offense a little bit more than defense. We're not, you're not necessarily just looking at who has the most WAR and putting that player in there.
Sure.
Like I think both Dansby Swanson and Xander Bogaerts are very high in WAR among NL shortstops, and yet their offensive numbers are just not that good. And generally, that sort of thing isn't really rewarded in All-Star game voting. So we'll see how it turns out. It is just kind of a weird year in general, though, for All-Star game voting. There's not really clear-cut candidates at a few different spots.
Yeah,
Third base is also really weird this year, with Manny Machado, Nolan Arenado not being nearly as good as they usually are. Austin Riley hasn't even been as good as usual.
But I'm sure those guys will still be voted.
We need to start the Emmanuel Rivera write-in campaign.
There you go.
He deserves it.
It's the only way it's going to happen.
As Damon said earlier, look at that man and tell me that's not what an all-star looks like.
He absolutely is. It's an all-star beard, that's for sure.
If you hit 380, are you not an all-star?
You absolutely
I'm sitting here and I can't wrap my head around
Can't fathom it.
It's the disrespect, the unmitigated gall of the fans.
He's down to 356 at this point, so maybe that's what it is. Once he gets up to 395, then the voters will. I mean,
all of you.
Rivera, in fairness, Rivera does have 110 plate appearances, so he's even lower than Matt McClain. He doesn't, frankly, have enough plate appearances to really draw.
But if Matt McClain's getting votes, then why can't Emmanuel Rivera?
That's true.
That's right. It's true. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly cannot be voted in, but both have decent chances of making it in. And the D-backs should be well represented in the All-Star game. I wanted to ask you guys, before we move on to the mailbag, how many All-Stars satisfies you with the way this team is playing? How many guys from the team, not we don't need names, we don't need specific, but number, how many guys would make you 10. At least feel like they were represented well?
David. We need a, what was it, like 2014, or probably too early on that, but the Royals? Yes.
2015, I believe.
No, I like five or six. Like, because I'm trying to think. Like, I do think at this point Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly deserve to be all stars. I think that Josh Rojas. No, I think that Lourdes Gurriel and Corbin Carroll deserve to be all stars.
Sure.
I mean, you start thinking about, does a guy like Scott McGuff find a way in there? Does Christian Walker Stark in the respect he deserves? Like, I feel like Perdomo, like after you get some like injuries and maybe some like people where it's not the fans choosing that these guys were all stars, I think you end up getting one or two more in there. So I think around that 5 area.
Generally speaking, the teams that have the most have 6. We saw a few teams last year with 6. And the Diamondbacks are tied for the best record in the National League. So it's hard to argue that they shouldn't have as many All-Stars as any team in the National League. I don't know if I would necessarily say 6, but yeah, I mean, I think based on how this generally goes in the past, I think 4 or 5 is a pretty reasonable number. Whether they get 4 or 5, I'm more leaning towards maybe 3, maybe 4 is sort of where things maybe seem to be trending.
Yeah,
but
3 is where I'm at. I think 3 as my minimum.
So who gets left out in that situation?
Well, I could see Merrill Kelly getting left out.
Fair.
I could see
Perdomo
getting left out. I could see it being
Perdomo wasn't factored into my 4.
I could see it being
guarantees.
Carroll and Gurriel seem pretty clear.
And then Zach Gallen.
Especially because it's in Seattle, man. Like, I feel like they're going to figure out a way to get Corbin Carroll.
If Carroll isn't in the All-Star game, I don't know what we're doing.
Let's talk about it.
I'm satisfied. I'm not worried about that, though. I feel like even if Corbin Carroll misses the fan vote, I feel like he'll still
that's what I'm
make
saying.
it as a reserve.
Yeah,
or at the very much like he seems like a prime candidate to win that like last man in vote that they do, where it's like they have like the 5 people to like, don't they always do that, the last man in vote or whatever?
Yeah, there is another. Like this is like the first stage, and then there's another phase to this that the fans participate in.
Everybody in the chat says 4 to 5. It looks like.
I think that's pretty reasonable.
Feels fair. Like I said, I feel like there's 4 people that I feel definitely deserve it, and then
do you think
1 or 2 that are fringe?
Do you think that is Lourdes allowed to concede his starting spot to Corbin Carroll?
Absolutely not.
Probably not. But it's so awkward.
It's a contract year for him. He ain't conceding.
That's fair.
I wouldn't concede anything.
It's kind of hilarious though. Like if you have 2 players at the same position, I think it's pretty clear that Corbin Carroll, in pretty much every respect at this point, Lourdes is absolutely deserving of being an all-star, but there is zero argument to be made that Lourdes deserves to start over Corbin Carroll. There's zero argument at this point.
Even on the emotional aspect, because it's in Seattle.
He's got to be there.
So many reasons.
He's got to be there. We'll see what happens.
Put him in the home run derby.